Episode 6. The evening air was thick with tension as David paced the living room, waiting for Sarah's parents to arrive. The children were in their bedroom, unaware of the confrontation brewing in the next room. David had spent the day preparing for this moment, gathering all the evidence he had uncovered and mentally bracing himself for the storm that was about to erupt. When the doorbell finally rang, David inhaled deeply, steadying himself. He opened the door to find Sarah's parents standing there, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Her father, a tall man with a commanding presence, looked at David with a raised eyebrow. Her mother, a petite woman with kind eyes, smiled nervously. "David," her father said, his voice gruff. "What's going on?" Your call sounded urgent. "Come in," David said, stepping aside to let them enter. As they walked into the living room, the tension in the air became palpable. Sarah was already seated on the couch, her arms crossed defensively, her posture radiating defiance. She barely glanced at her parents as they entered. David gestured toward the dining table, where the folder of documents was spread out. "Thank you for coming," David began, his voice steady but strained. He moved to stand behind the table, gripping the back of a chair for support. "There's something you need to know about your daughter." Sarah's father frowned, his sharp gaze darting between David and Sarah. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone wary. David hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "For years, I've been working myself to the bone to provide for this family. I've borrowed money, worked extra shifts, and sacrificed everything to keep a roof over our heads. All the while, I thought we were paying rent to a landlord, a stranger. But the truth is far worse." He gestured to the documents. "Sarah owns this house. She's been collecting rent from me all these years without telling me." The room fell into a stunned silence. Sarah's mother's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief. Her father's expression darkened, his jaw tightening as he processed David's words. "Sarah," her father said, his voice sharp and commanding, "is this true?" Sarah avoided his gaze, her arms tightening around herself. "I did it for us," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "For us?" her father roared, his hands slamming onto the dining table with a resounding thud. "You let your husband destroy himself while you sat back and profited? What kind of wife does that?" Sarah flinched but said nothing, her eyes fixed on the floor. Her mother shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, how could you?" she whispered. "How could you do this to your family? To your children?" The room erupted into chaos. Her father's voice boomed as he demanded answers, while her mother sobbed, pleading for an explanation. Sarah finally snapped, standing abruptly from the couch. "I did what I had to do," she shouted, her voice trembling with emotion. "You all think it's so simple, don't you?" David was barely holding us together. "I saw an opportunity, and I took it. Yes, I kept it from him, but I was trying to secure our future." "Secure our future?" David interrupted, his voice rising. "You mean your future, Sarah. Don't twist this into some noble sacrifice. You let me break myself for this family while you built your empire in the shadows. That's not protection. That's betrayal." "You wouldn't have understood," Sarah shot back. "You never think long-term, David. You're always so focused on the here and now, and I couldn't let that ruin us." "Ruin us," her father interjected, his face red with fury. "Sarah, you've ruined your marriage, your family, and your integrity. This isn't about long-term thinking. This is about trust, something you've completely destroyed." The argument escalated, voices overlapping as emotions boiled over. Sarah's mother, still crying, begged her daughter to explain herself, while her father berated her for her selfishness. David remained silent, his eyes fixed on Sarah as she lashed out defensively. Finally, Sarah's father raised his hand, silencing the room. He turned to David, his expression grim. "David, I don't know how you've put up with this, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what she's done to you and your family." He glanced at Sarah, his disappointment evident. "Whatever you decide, we'll support you. You don't deserve this." Sarah's mother nodded, wiping her tears. "David, We're here for you and the children. Please don't hesitate to let us help in any way. David swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. He appreciated their support, but it didn't change the reality of the situation. The woman he had built his life with had betrayed him in the worst possible way, and no amount of apologies or explanations could erase that pain. Sarah, still standing by the couch, looked at her parents with defiance. "You're all so quick to judge me," she said bitterly. "But none of you understand the pressure I was under. I did what I thought was best." "No, Sarah," her father said firmly. "What you did was selfish, and now you're paying the price." The tension in the room was suffocating, the weight of Sarah's actions hanging heavily over everyone. David finally spoke, his voice quiet but resolute. "This isn't just about the money or the lies. This is about the trust you shattered, Sarah. I can't fix what you've broken, not alone. I don't even know if I want to try." Sarah's defiance faltered, her shoulders slumping slightly. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. "I'll be staying here with the kids," David continued. "You can figure out where you're going next. But I'm done living in the dark." Sarah's parents exchanged a glance, but said nothing, respecting David's decision. The meeting ended with Sarah storming out, her parents staying behind to comfort David. As the door closed behind her, the room fell silent, the weight of the confrontation settling over everyone. David sat back in his chair, exhaustion washing over him. He had taken the first step toward reclaiming his life, but he knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. For his children's sake, he had to stay strong. And for himself, he had to learn to rebuild, not just his life, but his sense of trust and hope. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the remnants of his shattered world, David resolved to move forward, no matter how painful the process might be. It was the only way to ensure a better future for his children and for himself. If this emotional family showdown left you speechless, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to watch the next gripping episode of The Veil of Deceit. In the next episode, David takes the fight to the next level, consulting a lawyer to explore his options. But as Sarah fights back, the battle becomes even more personal. Don't miss the intense and suspense-filled Episode 7, Seeking Justice.